Luther, I want to thank you for this warm reception here in DC. It is qualitatively different to visit the nation's capital when you're an American citizen. I went to the White House. I made jokes about seeing the King's Palace. It was fun. So Rebecca and I are veterans of the copyright wars. We've been at it, both of us, for decades, fighting about the internet and the livelihoods of creators. And one thing that we had both taken note of is that for 40 years we've monotonically expanded copyright. Copyright now lasts longer, it covers more works, the statutory damages are higher, it's easier to get those when you're infringed upon. The entertainment industry itself has grown in all of its various sectors, and the share of income accruing to creators themselves, the creative workers whose work produces that value, has fallen in both real and proportional terms over that whole time. And so we asked ourselves, how is it that we have ended up in this circumstance? What is it about copyright that is not fit for purpose here? And we concluded that it had to do with market concentration, with monopsony, the less sexy cousin of Monopoly, the one without the board game to familiarize ourselves with it. And that in a circumstance in which you have 4 giant studios, 3 giant labels that own 3 giant publishers, 1 giant ebook seller, 1 giant print retailer, 5 giant publishers, maybe 4 depending on the Court of Appeals, that giving artists more copyright. Jonathan says 5. Thank you, Jonathan. No chicken chick clubs. So that in that world, giving a creator more copyright is like giving your bullied kid extra lunch money. Doesn't matter how much lunch money you give that bullied kid, the bullies are going to take it too. You need a structural fix to this, not an individual one. So the book itself decomposes into 2 sections. The first section is a kind of John Oliver-esque exercise in unwinding the Baroque scams of entertainment cartels. These strange accounting practices in finance, they call them MIGO, my eyes glaze over, practices by which creative workers are separated from their income through farcical regimes that are only able to continue because they are so complex that nobody can figure out what's actually going on. So we look at how Spotify colluded with the big 3 labels, who are also the big 3 publishers, to structure the future of the streaming industry, to use most favored nation status to ensure that follow-on labels that weren't within this cartel would have to take worse terms that were set by their major competitors. We look at how Audible uses a combination of digital rights management and a captured audience for audiobooks to engage in mass-scale wage theft. One of the people they stole from is a mystery author who's a retired forensic accountant who got very angry about it and figured out that the wage theft bill probably runs to the hundreds of millions of dollars. We look at ad tech rigging. I mean, this is something that's come out of the Texas AG's case against Facebook. We've seen that the duopoly in ad tech have rigged the market. Programs like Jedi Blue to just take money out of the pockets of news publishers. And we look at how addressing that, rather than leaning into copyright, would be a way to get more money for newspapers and get us better news. I mean, if we say instead of fixing the ad market so that the revenues of newspapers aren't being stolen anymore, we instead say, okay, well, we're going to create a para-copyright over headlines and news snippets so the newspapers have the exclusive right to determine who can talk about the news, that is a way of fundamentally breaking the news. If you can't talk about the news, it's not the news, it's a secret. Right? And so what we set out to do is to describe how structural changes can make real material differences and not just ideological ones about who gets to control things. So as they say, anything that can't go on forever will eventually stop. And so the second half of the book dedicates itself to solutions. And every time I say, oh, we've got a bunch of technical solutions, I do get worried that Evgeny Morozov is going to appear a puff of smoke and smack me. But these are solutions that are address themselves to these systemic problems. And normally when I give this talk, I'm talking to an audience of normies. And I say, these are not individual solutions. There's nothing that you guys can do about them individually. You're not going to change monopoly capitalism by changing how you shop any more than you're going to avert the climate emergency by changing how you recycle. These are systemic solutions that have to be addressed to the people who have their hands on the levers of power. With this audience, I actually want to say these are individual solutions that many of you can implement. So these are shovel-ready technical solutions, something to keep close at hand for these moments of upcoming crisis that are inevitable on a horizon, because anything that can't go on forever will eventually stop. So for example, we talk about how if you have a royalty arrangement and you audit your royalty statement, which most people who have a royalty arrangement are entitled to do, you will often find that you are entitled to money that you haven't been paid. In fact, we cite one firm that specializes in auditing record company royalty statements. They've done tens of thousands of these over decades. And this is going to shock you to your boots. But over decades of doing this, they've only found one instance in which there was an error that went to the artist's favor. Now, I don't know why that is. I assume it's some kind of horrible localized probability storm that has been raging around their accounting department. But when you find that you've been stolen from by the people who owe you royalties, and you demand that they pay you the money they owe you, they will say, you are an adorable little artist, but you can't do math. We don't owe you the money you think we do, but I'll tell you what, because we're such good-natured slobs, we'll settle with you, what do we say, 50 cents on the dollar, but you have to promise not to tell anyone how we stole from you. You have to sign a non-disclosure agreement, and your auditor has to promise never to audit us again. This is like the murderer being able to say to the forensics team, dig anywhere you'd like in my garden, guys, just not that corner in the back left. I'm very sentimental about it. You just leave that. So, contract, matter of state law. State law is a lot easier to change than federal law. 4 states are the states in which almost all of these contracts are consummated. California, New York, obviously, Washington, because of our friends at Amazon, some big game studios, and Nashville, right, Tennessee. If any one or all of those states were to pass a short bill that said, as a matter of public policy, non-disclosure is not enforceable when it pertains to material omissions or errors in royalty statements regarding the monies owed to creative workers, we would, at the stroke of a pen, put more money into the pockets of more creators than 40 years of copyright term extensions combined. There is a crack in the machine. If we stick a lever in it and wiggle it around, money will pour out of the goddamn machine and into the pockets of creative workers. We address ourselves to termination rights, the right to say after a set number of years you can get your copyright back. Even if you've been inveigled to sign it away until the heat death of the universe, you can still get it back. And we have a termination right in this country, very hard to exercise. We could make it easier. Originally in the 1976 Act, it was supposed to be automatic. We could make it automatic. And we talk about radical interoperability, allowing people who have digital assets to move them to new platforms where creators might get a better deal, so that creators don't feel that they have to sell on platforms that have bad terms to them because they know their audience can't afford to follow them to a better platform. Now, these aren't traditional antitrust remedies. These aren't structural remedies. These aren't conduct remedies. And neither are they traditional copyright remedies. Conduct remedies are very hard to administer. And in monopsonistic circumstances, they are much less effective, right? You get monopsonistic effects at very low market concentrations. Meanwhile, expanding copyright has proven to be an exercise in giving artists the sole right to be angry at their audience without giving them another dime. So instead, we want to address ourselves to things that will produce material improvements in the lives of creators, ideas that are fit for purpose. The answer to the problems we're having can't be something must be done. All right, I did something. We need to put money in artists' pockets. We need to put a roof over their head. We need to put braces in their kids' teeth. We need to put groceries on in their fridges. Now, these aren't the sort of proposals that we traditionally get about improving the lives of creative workers. Those are the proposals that we usually get are mobilized by a coalition of industry and workers. And they typically redound primarily to the benefit of industry with a little bit of trickle down to artists if you're very lucky. These are the kinds of remedies that artists are going to have to fight for on their own, and that means they're going to need your help, because they're not going to have deep-pocketed firms with big fancy offices down on K Street to come out swinging for them. These are the kinds of things that artists themselves are going to have to militate for, and that means that they need your help. So that's the subject of our book. It is to describe how the system works and how to fix the system, and it's to give you some ideas to have lying around. As our good friend Milton Friedman once said, for the moment of crisis when it arrives.
That's what I'm waiting for.
And now I'd like to turn it over to my friend, the warm Australian, the warm Canadian, the Australian co-author,